This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win. I'm very, very, very excited to talk to you guys about this guest and what he and his team are doing. Dr. David Berg has served as co-founder and president of Redirect Health following its inception in 2013. Since 2008, he's leveraged decades of healthcare leadership experience to make healthcare simple and affordable for businesses, individuals, and families throughout the country. In 2018, the Phoenix Business Journal honored him with the Healthcare Heroes Innovator Award for creating a transformative healthcare member experience. He holds degrees in physics and biology from the University of Toronto and a Doctor of Chiropractic degree from the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College. David, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Hey, JM. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. The reason I'm so excited is I met you in Scottsdale or Phoenix, and I was blown away at what you and your team are doing at Redirect Health, because you are changing the game, in my opinion, and you're making a huge pain point that we all feel that much better. So can you give a little bit of the story and history? How the heck did you accomplish this?
Well, the general thing that we did is we just took a business problem that we had, and we used the skills and the resources and the special knowledge that we might have had, and we just solved our own business problem. But you've got business problems. Every business owner out there has business problems, and we solve them. And sometimes we solve them by calling in a friend. Sometimes we read a book and apply something. Sometimes we hire an expert to come in there and give us some advice, and that we might listen to a part of it or all of it, or just have them do it for us. So to us, it was just a business problem that we had, and we happened to own healthcare centers, so we knew healthcare and at a very detailed level. So to solve our own healthcare insurance problem, you would think would be a little easier for us. I don't know what it was, but it was easier to convince us that it was easy for us to do. So we actually started the project back in the 2007 is when we started trying to solve our own health insurance cost problem. And we've done it very successfully for ourselves, and we turned it into a business. And before that, we started helping our friends who were struggling through the recession of 2009 and 2010 and the scare of Obamacare and what that meant to small business. And we just showed them what we were doing and how we made the cost of health insurance irrelevant to our own business, and how we made healthcare simple and truly affordable for all our employees and their families, regardless of how much money they made, just by thinking differently about it, having a different mindset about healthcare. And we just started helping our friends do it, and it worked really well. And a lot of our friends at that time were afraid of the Affordable Care Act and what was going to be their business. They were just coming out of the recession, and they were seeing insurance costs go up 30%. And so we just had let's say a dozen, maybe it was 15 that we helped to some degree, entrepreneurs, all of them, business owners. And we just said, hey, do it this way, and I'll help you do it. And it was fun at the time, and it worked so well on other companies that my current business partner, Paul Johnson, who's the former mayor of Phoenix, he encouraged me. He's the chairman of my board, my company, my healthcare company, encouraged me that we should do this for others and turn it into a business and use this strategy. It was working so well for us and our friends and Paul's company and his brother's company, and just start to share it with others and help them solve the healthcare cost and insurance mess that they were in. And now we're thousands all over the country, all 50 states, and doing the same things, the same principles that we were doing as a strategy in our own company back in 2008. That's just continuing to get tighter and better. And as we understand it better and understand how the dots get connected and how the different relationships happen in the healthcare system. But now we're just helping others do what we used to do, what we're doing in the business, and we're charging them for it. And it's been quite fun, quite a ride. I enjoy this better than practicing by far.
Well, that's interesting. And you talked about the mindset, because I think we've almost been conditioned that healthcare is just expensive. Costs are just going to keep rising, and that's just the way it is. But you, and I say your team, because one of the things, guys, really quick, David might be the most humble CEO I've met, where I was just blown away. He is just casual about who he is. There's no pretentious about him, but you're solving a major, major pain point for people. So talk about the mindset. How do we get people to see that there might be a much better way to do business?
I've been a student for the last several years of complex systems, how to think about them, how to design them, how to engineer them, how to manage them. And a complex system needs to be managed different and built different and thought about different than a simple system or even a complicated system. And what I mean by complex is there are a lot of parts to it. They're all moving and they always move different and they interact with each other and it's changing and dynamic. And so you can never have a cause and effect that is the same every single time in a complex system. So you always have to be monitoring what's happening in the complex system, making minor adjustments always. And so that's the first part for me, is just understanding it from a mindset perspective that I am dealing with a complex system of healthcare. Now, the traditional complex system of healthcare, the mental model or the mindset around it, if you think about it, it's all about, JM, you should be afraid of what things cost, of whether you're going to die, of whether you'll be able to be a good dad to your children and provide healthcare. You should be afraid. So you better trust Big Brother to help you. And that might take the form of a hospital system or a government or an insurance company, but that's the mental model. And all the structure and the insurance and all, and the hospitals and the doctors and the coding and the way we track things and all the rules and laws are around that mental model of, you better be afraid or you're going to get hurt or you're going to be a bad dad. Your kids are going to not get the healthcare they need when they need it. Now, my wife is a family physician and I practice as a chiropractor, and we've had hundreds of doctors working for us. We've done well over 3 million brick and mortar in-office visits and surgeries, multi-specialty in our clinics over the last 25 years. So I don't have that same fear, but I noticed that I operate in that system of fear. That's the mental model. You better be afraid. So that's where everybody starts. But what I noticed around my own kitchen table, that we didn't operate that way. As a matter of fact, we operated from the perspective of, hey, how do we get people the right care when they need it with the right logistics and pay the right price? And the right price might be zero if you don't need it in the first place. And maybe I'll wait till tomorrow to see what you need so that maybe it gets better and you don't need anything and the right price is zero. Right? So that's the mental model that I see around my kitchen table, and I have for years and years and years, but it wasn't the one that would happen in our clinics. And what the result of that was much better healthcare for my family and our neighbors and our extended family and our friends who participate in this new system, this mom with a medical degree system, my wife with a medical degree system. It was just easy. It was simple. And it was very affordable for everybody. And it always started virtual first. I noticed that. It always started with a phone call or a text or a communication with the expert, and then got accelerated by the expert to the level of expertise was needed. And the brick and mortar in-office visit probably only happened a tenth as often as in the other system. So the mental model was different, right? It wasn't about be afraid. It was about, let's get the expert involved. Let's get mom, the medical degree, involved early so we get the right care at the right price, which is often zero. And we wait when we can, and we jump on things right away when we have to. And let's focus on eliminating the unnecessary activity and the unnecessary spending in healthcare. Let's not focus on reducing anything. Let's eliminate the unnecessary. And then the end result will be that the overall costs are a lot less and the accessibility is much more and the quality is much more. But that's what we saw. So that mental model was easy for me to embrace because I lived it in my own family. And by the way, every doctor in America, at least, I don't know, and Canada too, to some degree, I practice there, so I understand that a bit. But every doctor in America already operates in that mental model and builds their own system for their own family. Every insider does. There's not a CEO of the hospital that calls the receptionist and books an appointment. They call their buddy and say, what should I do? Right? And then the buddy will get someone to call them to schedule probably about a tenth as often as they would in the general population. So this concept of mindset is really, really important if you want to solve health, if you want to make healthcare work for the customer, the consumer, the purchaser and the user, the employer and the employee and their families. You got to change the mental model, because the existing system has its own mental model, its own mindset. And it works really well if you think about it. If the existing system is designed to scare people into buying more insurance, buying more healthcare services, and paying a lot of money for it, the way we measure that is share price, because all the companies are publicly traded, and the share prices, are sky high. Since the Affordable Care Act happened, I think United Healthcare is well over $300 now a share. It was about $17 right before the Affordable Care Act. That's a hugely successful, complex system if it's designed for shareholders. And of course it is designed by shareholders. All the structure, all the rules, all the things you see in healthcare are around shareholders. In the system that I've created, or I've decided to, I don't know if I created it. I saw it happening in my own house, and then I expand in every other physician's house also. And we just turned it into that strategy and that mental model, that complex system, is something that's a business. And I've seen other friends do that in other industries too. Think about the person that has a landscaping company and can't get all the accounting and the scheduling software figured out. So they go and they build their own scheduling software with accounting built into it, specific for invoicing clients of landscaping companies. Well, don't be surprised if there are other landscaping companies that need that same strategy. And then that landscaper now has a software company, right? So I've seen it so often. So have you, JM, right? And you talk to entrepreneurs who own businesses. We solve problems, and sometimes we sell them those strategies to friends. Sometimes we just keep using them ourselves and keep the advantage to ourselves.
Well, what I think is so unique is this pain point everyone feels. Like, I don't know anyone where I'm like, hey, you love going to the doctor? I've never heard somebody say, yes, it's such a pleasurable experience. I go in. No, it's miserable. The idea is not fun. And here's the other thing that you guys are doing. And I get excited about it. In fact, when I started telling people about it, I was too excited. They're like, that sounds too good to be true. I had to start texting to tell people about your product, because I'm like, okay, I'm clearly too excited about how good this is. And so my point is, one of the things that you guys do that I think is remarkable is the information share. Before you go in, they know what you're coming in for, who you are, what your background is. So it saves so much time. It's just, and so maybe you can speak to that, David, because I think that is just absolutely incredible how you've been able to shift that and make the experience so much better than it has been for all the time that the traditional healthcare system looks like.
Yeah. So the first thing we start with is in our system is we want to understand who the stakeholders are in priority. So we put the customer and the consumer side by side. So the purchaser and the user. Sometimes they're the same person. Most times they're separate, right? An employer, an employee, and the kids, right? The kids don't pay a dime, so they're no way close to being a customer, but they are a consumer. So that's the first layer. But then the next layer are the providers of the service. We want to make sure they get taken care of too, because we want them to reciprocate by taking care of us and participating and playing fair in this new sandbox that we've created. So we make sure that they get the information they need, and and that they can rely on and trust, and then we pay them. And we don't threaten the old system of fear always says, do the work, and maybe you won't get paid because maybe you'll code it wrong. But maybe we'll pay you, and then we'll check your records a year later, and maybe we'll do a recoup because you did your notes wrong. That fear never goes away in the traditional system. Well, I operate in that system, so I know how to get out of it. I know how to, that is a big driver for doctors. Well, if I reverse it and I go, hey, and we could have different levels, right? So some things don't matter. You're going to see your doctor because we want to do a general physical. We don't need to do this, right? But you're going to the emergency room with a burst appendix. Heck, it's a different game. So in that second situation, A doctor is going to pick up the phone, not email, not text, not smoke signal, not letter, right? Not official form. And they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call the ER and talk to the attending physician and say, I got J.M. Ryerson coming by. I think he's got an appendicitis. I hope it hasn't burst yet. He's a healthy male. He does take this medication. He's had this surgery in the past. Only the relevant things. And it's a 30-second, 2-minute conversation at best. But it's physician to physician, high trust, and all the noise has been sifted through. So when you get there, that doc at the other end, emergency room, has a lot of confidence. And by the way, they've got the cell number. Right? They have a lot of confidence that you're going to go first in line because they know how much time it's going to take. They know what's going on. They don't have to do a whole bunch of testing, a whole bunch of history. See, what a lot of people don't realize is that when I tell your doctor what's going on with you, how healthy you are, how unhealthy you are, what medications you take, what you should take but don't take, there's instant trust. When you tell them, they're going to ask the question 2 or 3 ways to see if you're inconsistent, because you might not understand the words. You might not understand the importance of the words. And if a doctor's out talking to a doctor, we might even say, hey, that's not important. Let me tell you what's important here. Right? Know what you're getting to. You're getting to diabetes. No, that's ruled out. That's fine. Let me get to what's important. Right? So we get there much faster. So that communication, physician to physician, is such a powerful thing. And it does not exist in the other system. As much as we say it does, it exists on forms and official paperwork. And here, let me send the medical records to you. But no doctor wants to get your medical records. I don't want to see your medical records. I want to talk to the doctor who can tell me in 30 seconds what's important. Or I want the sheet of paper that tells me in 30 seconds what's important. And what's important today might be different than what's important after you get hit by a car. Right? So the timing matters that too. So communication is so important. But one of the best ways to communicate internally is just by creating process that are principle based, so that the same thing happens over and over and over again until it doesn't, until there's some triggers hit and we need to pull it out and get another set of eyeballs on it. But it communicates to the next level of eyeballs through the process. I might be getting a little bit too deep in the weeds there or abstract, but the communication back and forth is critical in a complex system, and especially ours. And what I think you witness is we care about communication, and we slice and dice it in so many granular ways. And it sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes an email is good, but sometimes it got to be a phone call. And sometimes a phone call has to be in the middle of the night. I mean, I witnessed one about a month ago where my wife is our chief medical officer, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and she gets a text from one of our other doctors, and it said, I'm really worried about this person, call me. So she calls 10 o'clock at night, and our other physician says, yeah, I got this blood test back, and it shows something really bad. I haven't been able to get a hold of the member. Man, I'm really worried about him. So what should I do? So my wife, Janice, she calls LabCorp at probably 10:30 at night now, because we can't get a hold of the member. And we're thinking we got to go break down his door in case he's in bad shape inside his house or his apartment. Calls LabCorp, middle of the night. There is an emergency way. Nobody would know how to get to it, except we've created this communication pathway because we're 24/7. English and Spanish all around the country, all time zones in America, including Hawaii. So we've had to create this special pathway, communication pathway to LabCorp. So we call LabCorp middle of the night. She does. And you wouldn't do that if it wasn't important and you weren't worried about it. And I wouldn't even know I had the guts to call somebody 11 o'clock at night. I don't even know what time zones they're in. But she says, hey, I got this. Here's what's going on. The person at LabCorp says, let me check our system. And just see what our system shows. She shows that LabCorp had run the test 3 times, and the reason they had sent it to us at 10 o'clock at night was because it was so dangerous. And they had repeated the test 3 times because they were worried about it too. So we start doing what we need to do. And we might have, I don't know all the details at this point, but we might have called the police, had somebody go over there, or next a kid, or just somebody go over there in the middle of the night to disturb this guy. Now, what happened was the guy wasn't there. That's why he wasn't answering. But the reason he wasn't there is because he felt so bad that he went to the emergency room. And we found out like it was like 5 o'clock next morning. So now we're doing our stuff, but it's physician to physician. And it turns out this gentleman was in severe kidney failure, and it was a big deal. But I'm just giving you a description, like one of the most extreme things are situations where the type of communication is critical. And I don't mean the normal kind. I mean, be able to make it up and shift on the spot. Truthfully, until that night, I didn't even know that we had a pathway like that to LabCorp at 11 o'clock at night. I didn't even know it. If I wasn't there witnessing, I still to this day don't know how it even got created, except that it was needed and the team somehow made it. Wow. So the system, because it's there to serve the purchasers and users, 24/7, English, Spanish, it's there. It is just like a mom with a medical degree would do at her kitchen table. Of course, she would have that pathway if she could create it. Right. So the system, because of the mental model, the mindset, and the structure we built around that mindset, naturally built that conduit of communication that a system that once you'd be afraid would never build. Right.
Pretty remarkable, brother. So you build the system, it's evolving. Like you said, how could you know all of these things? But that's pretty awesome that it can do this. I want to break this down to layman's terms, because if I'm listening to this, I'm going, that's amazing. How does it affect me? I'll tell you, if you literally reduce your premiums, get better care, it's a better, I call it concierge service. How in the world does Redirect do this? And if I'm listening, how can I be a part of this? So there's a lot in that, but I just want people to understand this has been my experience. Reduce the premium, better coverage, and a much easier process for the same benefits, if not better. It's incredible.
Yeah. And we haven't really told people that there might be some people out there even wondering, what does Redirect Health even do? Because we jumped into the mindset of it.
I did. I'm sorry. See, this is what I think it feels.
I don't even know if people know what we do. So we build health. We have a health plan that we built, and we manage it. We have third-party administrator licenses in all 50 states. We're licensed to manage health plans for businesses that are self-funded, self-insured. Right. So that's the technical part of it. But we also have medical licenses in all 50 states, which means we have the ability to take care of people before the claim even happens and has to be managed. So most TPAs, they don't take care of people. So there's a lot of claims, and they got to manage a lot of claims and pay those claims and keep reporting on a lot of claims. And that claims data is very valuable to insurance companies and big data people, but it's claims data. We'll put a medical license in front of that, or 50 states of medical licenses, and a team of 250 people who are all working with process around taking care of people. And now what happens is the data we're looking at is clinical data. So we want to know, so we're matching with medical knowledge because we want to take care of the healthcare of people before the claim happens. First step is, let's make the claim not happen by being smart, just like every doctor already does for their family, right? Doctors don't have as many claims as non-doctors because we know how to avoid those claims. We know how to avoid the problems. We know how not to end up in an emergency room because our kid ran out of an asthma inhaler. We know how to not get admitted for 4 days and $50,000 because we skimped on the glucose testing strips for our little boy who's got diabetes. We just know how to do that, right? We know how, so by applying the medical knowledge with the medical information together, we can eliminate the claims data. So then my third-party administrator is very ultra competitive because it has a lot less work to do, which means like we can charge less. So you talk about less premiums, so we can charge less. And if there's less claims, the insurance piece, which is on the back end, doesn't have as many claims to pay. Of course, the insurance costs will be less. So if the TPA cost is less, the insurance cost is less, maybe the medical cost is more, but it's such a small part of the pie compared to the insurance costs and the administration costs. But if you get those things down, they're not value added to the customer anyway, or the user or the consumer. Now the premiums are less, a lot less. And the out-of-pockets can be less too, to the user. And that was important in our system because remember I said the first two stakeholders are the purchaser and the user, the customer and the consumer, employer, employee. Well, if you work in a small business, you don't work in big government or big corporation, do you know that 90% of the workers make under $25 an hour? 90%. What percentage so let's forget about the 5%. Let's just talk about those 90%. What percentage of them do you think have enough money for a $5,000 deductible? Pretty close to zero if you make, right? It's once we pay rent or mortgage or a car payment or gas bills or for your car transportation, and you got to feed yourself, right? Plus you got to have a little bit there for the repair in the car if the tire goes flat or the car, whatever, right? There's no money left over at the end of the week or the month for the certain costs. Good luck putting any money aside for healthcare that may or may not be needed next month or next quarter or this year when you know you got to pay rent, food, transportation, et cetera. Right. So if you really look at that small business clientele or worker and the people who have to be attractive to them to keep to run their businesses and have a advantage in their business for labor, at least, if they want to solve healthcare for them, they have to get rid of the out-of-pockets. People don't have $25 copay, $50 copay, $100 copay. They don't have $5,000, $7,000, even $2,000 deductibles. It's a math problem. The math doesn't work, right? So you got to get those things down to zero. And the best way to get down to zero is have the employer pay for it. But the easiest way to get the employer to pay all of it is to reduce the cost to the employer with all the things we talked about already. But what if we could take a new step? And this is what I did for my own company and why I got so excited about it at the beginning is I was really having a retention problem in my business and a recruiting problem in my business. And we have many clients have worker comp problems, especially when they're in construction or manufacturing or assisted living homes, but we don't. But let's just say recruiting, retention. I needed to solve those problems to run my business. And so if I could get healthcare so inexpensive that I paid 100% of it, I could put free healthcare in my job ads. I mean, that's a game changer, right? And it's really hard for anyone to offer my employees a little bit more money and have them excitedly jump because their healthcare is here. And they might be getting $20,000 of healthcare. I'm paying a lot less for it. But if they go somewhere else, somehow they got to figure out that $20,000 or $30,000 of healthcare for their family, depending how big they are. So it's really, so for businesses, this overall business strategy was we want to take money that they're already spending on recruiting, retention, maybe workers' comp, productivity loss, management of people who don't show up on time because they don't have the best committed labor and core value alignment. And they're already spending money there. But if they're spending $200,000 there a year, why don't we just help them spend $100,000 on healthcare? And by redirecting that 200 they're already spending somewhere else, put it on healthcare, attract a better workforce so they solve the recruiting and retention problem too. So again, it's an employer and employee solution where the two work together and collaborate. And when they do, they gain incredible power that they don't have in a fear-based system of healthcare, where the employer is afraid of the employee overutilizing, the employees afraid of the employer buying lousy insurance with high deductibles, right? They're afraid of each other and they're on opposite sides. We just say, let's put them on the same side. And let's help them work together with our plan design. And let's make sure that when they work together and they get the cost low, let's pay the providers the exact amount they should really fast and never threaten to take it away so that there's no fear being created. If the other system is a stick system, ours is a carrot system.
That's a really good way to put that. Being a disruptive force, and maybe that's the wrong terminology, but I have to imagine not everybody's like, hey, redirect, that's perfect, when they've been so accustomed to this one system.
Mm-hmm.
What is your biggest challenge, David, today as you guys continue to grow? Because again, I think it's remarkable. I think everyone should check redirect out. It is amazing. But what is the biggest challenge you have to really get this mainstream where it's looked at, even where this will become the norm instead of the exception to the rule?
I think the biggest challenge we have from a frequency perspective is believability. That's it. Just too good to be true. If this was true, then everybody'd be doing it. And usually when people say that, they're thinking about the other model, right? Because they're afraid of something, afraid of costs, afraid of that preemie baby, afraid of that hemophiliac baby that or child, right? That's going to cost $1 million. So fear, 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 fear. And you're right. In that world, I get it. We just built a different world where that doesn't exist, or it not doesn't exist, but it's not important like in the other one it is to drive things. So that's our biggest challenge is believability. Why would everyone else do this? And I mean, our answer to it is because nobody else had to, right? Nobody else felt they had to. I couldn't make it. I couldn't figure out how to make the traditional insurance company happen or work. And in 2007, our business was struggling. I mean, I thought I was going out of business because of the cost of insurance, and the labor market was so tight that as the insurance costs went up and I had to raise deductibles, the big corporations in my town of Phoenix, so the ones I'm remembering were like the banks, Honeywell, American Express, Discover Card, the hospital systems, right? They were big corporations that had really good health benefits with like $250, $500 deductibles. And at that time in 2007, 2006, I was going to $1,500 deductibles. Forget that they're 5, 6, 7,000 today, but my people were leaving and it was a tight labor market, and my core value alignment just truly sucked in those years. It went from being top shelf, nobody could touch it, to at this time where we would lose somebody and then we had no job applicants. I remember paying recruiters $2,000 to hire somebody for the front desk. And it was like the people who were looking for jobs at the front desk in 2006 and 2007, they weren't very good. I'm just telling you, if you were looking for a job then, there were hundreds of jobs in Phoenix anyway. So I had to build it. I mean, that's the answer, is I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to stay in business, I had to build a different system, and I needed one that I could afford. And I needed one that I could believably tell a story to my people, my employees or families, that this new system was doable and it was affordable. And the story that I told them at the time is, how would I create a system that works exactly like my family uses? And they knew my wife's a doctor, me as a doctor, and our kids who were little at the time. And I said, we're going to just build a system, the same one we use for our own family. Are you in? And at that time, we had about 50 employees. Now we have about 240. So we're smaller. But we had people just say, yep, let's do it. And because they all saw the writing on the wall, it was a spiral that was obvious to lots of us that it was out of control and the math didn't work. But that's our biggest challenge, is believability. I went off on a tangent there, but it's believability. The other one we find happens sometimes in the past, not as much now, is we try to do partnerships or collaborations with people, could have been insurance companies or brokers or GAs or whoever, where their business model, their money was made in this old system. So they would try to use parts of our system, but they wanted to operate in the old mindset of creating fear and creating fear driving everything. And we have realized now there's a bit of an oil and water. They just don't mix really well. So the people who do well with us and get it right away, and so we work with a ton of brokers. There are some that just absolutely hate us. And there are some that go, like you, this is incredible what you're doing. And we just realized we can't be something to everybody. We just got to pick a side. And the side here is, who wants to help? It's about people. Could be brokers, could be doctors, could be, we have somebody created an insurance company for us. So insurance companies too. It's not our insurance company, but they created it for our model only. But it's about, can we make money? Is there a business model where by helping businesses and their employees and their families make it so that everyone can truly afford this simpler system that relies on easy access to healthcare, managing the clinical data with medical eyeballs on it at all times, so that we can eliminate the unnecessary activity, unnecessary spending, and can we create a business model and collaborate together to do that? That's a heavy ask when everybody in healthcare has made money in the other model, right? It's a heavy ask. And but what we've learned over the years is we don't have to convince 80% of the brokers that this is a great thing. We don't. If we can convince 5%, 2%, we can't handle all the business.
Well, and I think what I saw and what I heard, I mean, that's what your scalability, you're continuing to improve it, because the truth is, if the market got flooded tomorrow, wow, we got some serious infrastructure to build. But if I'm a business owner listening right now, or not even a business owner, I'm affected by healthcare as I was, what would you say to them? Because premiums are going up. I hate going to the doctor because the
I
experience
know.
is miserable. What would you say to him, David? Because I know I got a chance to sit in front of you. I sat in front of your team. I got to see it, hands on, and I was blown away. And the believability thing is real, guys, because I'm telling you, I've told many of you, got to check this out. It's incredible, but I'm so excited. It's kind of that's why I have to send the text. What would you say to him, David, if we're talking to him, hey, check this out, or what would be that elevator pitch, if you will, because I know they're listening. You can be helped right now if you listen right now. What would you say to them?
So usually I say, hey, you're going to get off this, you're going to get off of this disaster system sooner or later, right? Just look at the trend in dollars, right? At some point, you're not going to be able to afford this. And right now, and a lot of times for business owners, I say, how many people in your company can afford the monthly premiums? That's an easy number, right? And they'll be able to say, well, 40%, right? They have 40% participation. I said, okay, of that group, how many, in your deductible is $5,000, how many of them have $5,000? 10,000 are family. And then they go, well, none of them. I said, okay, so you're buying something you can't really afford, or they can't afford to use. So when does that stop? And then, so I'll guide them through it, and they'll go, well, it should have stopped. When I get them to, it should have stopped last year. Okay, now they're there. But I plant in their mind that, well, next year when it goes up 10% or 20%, or every time they hear a complaint because of the deductible or the copay, or somebody's sick and missing work, I coach them a little bit. I said, ask people when they're sick and miss work. That's an obvious time. Hey, did you see the doctor? Ask your employee if they saw a doctor when they take a day off because they're sick or a child is sick. And you will hear over and over and over again, no, I can't afford it. Even the people who have insurance, over and over and over again, people with insurance do not see doctors because they can't afford it. And the only reason you even have insurance is because the employer is paying for it. What a waste that is for everybody. The employer's not getting credit for it. The people don't get the benefit of it. It's just a game of fear that is wasting everybody's time and money. And when they realize that, they might not come around this year. I can't tell you, or this year, I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call from somebody that, I don't even try to pretend anymore. I had one this morning where I just said, hey, I am so sorry. I do not remember the context of our conversation 3 years ago. Please fill me in. Who introduced us? And because they've been thinking about it for 3 years. The person this morning was thinking about 3 years and one thing that she said was, all those things you said came true. And all she's talking about was the cost going up. There, in her mind, that was like prophecy, but it's not prophecy. We all know the costs are going up. If you look at the line from 1999 and every measure of healthcare to today, it's a straight line. It's not that hard to predict what's going to happen in 2022 and 2023. It's a straight line since 1999, which is when I started looking at it. Everything's a straight line as far as costs.
It's broken, you guys. I want you to hear it loud and clear. He has created a system, and he's got a remarkable team behind him with his wife. Trust me, it's awesome, but they have created something. It's a real solution. I'm not going to get too excited because I want you to check it out yourself. David, what should I have asked you that I just didn't know enough to ask? And you're like, darn it, Jam, I need to say this to the audience before I get done with this podcast.
Well, I think the first thing you should have done is said, Dave, no one cares about the system and how you built the sausage and thought about the sausage factory when you're building it. Just tell us what we get. That's the first thing I would advise you, because we went way too deep on that one. But you can tell I geek out over this stuff. And there isn't a complex system design or management conversation I don't love being part of, because my wife tells me often, and my friends, that why do we always keep talking about systems whenever you're in the room? And we could be talking about, a new pair of shoes, and all of a sudden it becomes about the system that was needed to build them and distribute them. But what should you have asked? Why somebody should do it? Why somebody should, because not everyone should. Not everyone's ready right now. Like, why would somebody be ready to make that shift? Let me tell you who's not ready and should not burden themselves with thinking about this. If you've got huge margins in your business and your people make a lot of money, so maybe that's a law office, maybe it's an engineering office, accounting office with professionals. Usually it's more white collar type work or jobs. It's a pain in the butt to spend as much as you are because you know you're getting ripped off. But the truth is you can afford it. And it's easier today to just plug in, buy the product that you're used to with the high deductible and just take it. You're always going to be able to afford it. But don't be afraid of having something different for your staff that don't make as much money. Don't put them in the same plan as you. But I would say the people who make a lot of money, or companies where the people make a lot of money and the margins are good, and this is a very small percentage of their spend, don't go in our system. It just doesn't matter. And the experience is a little different, and it might be a little weird for you or spouses. Because in order to make it work, you've got to let us guide you through the system. And there's some people who love to guide themselves through the system, even though, because maybe it's fun for them, maybe it isn't, maybe it's what they're used to. But in our system, in order to make it work, we have to be the guide. I don't know how to keep healthcare costs, right now they're about $10,000 a person throughout the country. I don't know how to keep them at $4,000 if my team, my system, my strategy can't guide you, right? So you don't just buy our stuff and then all of a sudden it's magically $4,000 a year instead of 8 or 9 or 10. It doesn't magically happen. It's because you use our app, you call us, you text us, we figure out what's going on, we coordinate things, navigate people through the system. I mean, that's how it works today. So the company that does do well with us is the one where we call them high stakes workforce. So if they have a high stakes workforce, meaning if their workforce is sick or misses work because of healthcare, could even be taking a kid to the doctor, and it disrupts their profitability of their business, probably because their margins are so low, that's a big deal. So an example would be a trucking company. Let's say you owned a trucking company and you had drivers on the road. If that driver gets sick and that load does not move for a day, you're going to lose all your profitability on that whole shipment, right? So keeping that driver on the road, and if they have to make a doctor's appointment a day from now, and you want them on the road today, good luck, right? So they're just not going to have doctor's appointments, so they're going to get sick, or their medications won't get refilled, their backs will get stiffer and sore, their diabetes will be out of control, their high blood pressure will get worse. And that's what happens with a trucking company, which means it's sooner or later you have to pay the piper on that one, because that trucker is going to fail an exam and that unexpectedly, and that truck will be stopped until you pay time and a half for the new labor, right? See how that's a high stakes workforce. If you don't keep your trucking workforce healthy, you cannot be competitive. Another example would be like a construction company. If you can't manage your workers' comp costs, your work injuries, you cannot be competitive in construction. There's not a construction company that doesn't have to worry about workers' comp. Well, the best way to solve the workers' comp is to have first dollar coverage for everyone in the company before they get injured. And then when they do get injured, you probably use workers' comp. You use the regular system wherever you can, and workers' comp only when you have to. And then you use the workers' comp only about let's say a third of the time, but it's probably less than that, right? So that's a high stakes workforce where if you don't keep them healthy, you're going to spend too much on workers' comp, or maybe your EMOD gets too high and you can't qualify for that government job bid, right? So it's high stakes. Assisted living home is another one too, where the ratios matter of number of staff to residents. And you want to have if the staff gets poached because somebody gives them 50 cents more an hour because their staff comes down with COVID and you lose 3 staff, you're in trouble because your ratios will be off. Right? You don't have enough staff to take care of people. Forget you're just not taking care of people, but you just don't have enough staff too. But maybe those staff get overwhelmed and they have to send somebody to the hospital prematurely, or they have to call 911 prematurely because they have too much, they're overwhelmed, the ratios are off. Well, that's a high stakes workforce, because every time someone goes to the hospital, they're probably going to lose 2 months of revenue. The first month for the member going there or the resident going there, the next month to hire the recruiter to find another resident, right? So those are high stakes workforces. So back to the question, it's like, where does this matter and where does it not really matter? I'm going to say that people make a lot of money and have high margin businesses. It just doesn't matter that much. If it's better, it's 10%, 20% better. But in these other companies I told you about, construction, assisted living, trucking, those are the ones that always hit. I understand those businesses and the workforces really well now. It's 1,000 times better for them. It's just a different game. The competitive advantage they get when they put all the parts together is incredible.
Well, guys, I hope you go check it out, because I promise you, I don't know if you have a high stakes workforce or you don't. It's worth looking at, because the experience I've had has been incredible. David, I so appreciate you building the system and being here. Where can our listeners connect with either Redirect online, or where can they find you?
So redirecthealth.com, probably the easiest place. I'm pleased to give you my email address too. It's david.berg@redirecthealth.com, and Berg is like iceberg, Berg. And if anyone has if you have a question, reach out to me. I mean, you want to fight with me over some about this too, because I'm okay with that too. But I'll direct you to the people who can help you the most if you have any questions I can't answer.
I told you guys, he's humble, man. He literally gave you his personal email address. Talk to him. It's disruptive and it's amazing. David, thank you so much for the time and creating just an incredible system, brother.
Oh, my pleasure, JM. And thank you for your encouragement.
It's truly my pleasure. You guys, I hope you got as much out of it. I'm telling you, I get so excited about it. Check it out. You will be happy you did. I'm not saying you have to do anything, but at least you are educated on some of the amazing things that Redirect is doing for the healthcare system. And in the meantime, you guys continue transcending life. Do go check out Champions Daily Playbook. It published like a month ago or so on Amazon. I really think you'll get a lot out of it. It's something that can help you every single day. Until next week, we'll talk to you again. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.